It is Tuesday, August 27th, 2024, 7:30 p.m. sharp. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Hidden Oaks Overdose Football Fix podcast. I am one of your lovely hosts, the Garlic Johnson. We are joined, as always, by our other lovely host, the Joshua Mitchell. Josh, say hi to the folks out there.
Hi, folks.
We appreciate people who chat along with us in the Discord. We appreciate people who give us money. We appreciate people who bake us cookies. Josh, are there any other people we appreciate?
People who don't eat your cookies.
Ooh, good point. But no, we appreciate our listeners. We appreciate our fans. We appreciate our community. Josh, how you doing today?
I do.
Josh, that could not have been a larger sigh. Good God.
Yeah, well, we'll talk a little bit about why I'm a big sigh during the pod today, I'm sure. But how are you, Gar?
Well, I would say I'm doing just fine, honestly. The big things happening at the Johnson household, the ranch. After our stove went out last week, the ranch decided to pull the trigger on some brand new appliances. I got a new dishwasher and a new fridge, which are looking great. The stove is not so great. We paid for the full install and everything, and the guys that came out, they weren't going to do the gas line. Apparently, that's a separate guy and an extra charge, so the ranch is not thrilled about that. And then we also went from just a loose microwave to an above-the-stove microwave, and we've never had one of those before, so we didn't have the outlet above the stove in like that little cabinet area, so we got to get an outlet put in. And of course, Jesse just left town, so we're going to have to get someone else to do it. I don't know any electricians, do you? So, you know, we out of two of our 4 brand new appliances are usable today, so that's something.
Wow. Was it like a big old Costco package deal? Like buy one, get 3 free?
No, he went through a place called like, I don't think he saved that much money, but he went through a place
Jerry's
called
Back Alley.
It's called Steve's Appliances or something, and I would not recommend. They left a big stain on our carpet. Again, the salesman was deceiving. I'm going to give them a poor review on Google as well. I would not use Steve's Appliances. We had a bad experience.
Do you want me to Yelp them?
Yeah, if you could, that'd be great.
All right.
Well, that's me, man. What about
appliances.com?
Do you want to get any of your woes out of the way now, or are they all fantasy related and will come out during our draft analysis?
Oh, they're mainly fantasy related, but well, we could talk about it with the draft analysis.
Analysis?
Yep.
All right, Gar. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Shall we get into it? I don't think we have an actual agenda. So.
Oh, we do not. It was just go over last year and then go over this year. So speaking of, we are here grading the 2024 Hidden Oaks League of Record draft. We had a lovely show out. 9 of the 12 league members were there. 1 was at a pool party. 1 was on the pontoon of Middle Lake. 1 was drafting from the pews at a wedding, which I honestly respect. But so pretty good show out. No sticker person. Walters and Al both were too good for us, which is disappointing. Walters had a legitimate excuse. Al said, absolutely not. You're a loser. So I was like, all right, that's kind of messed up, but whatever. But it was a good show out. And then before we draft this year, or before we grade this year's draft, though, we're going to look at how we did last year. Just as we always do, we'd like to give our listeners or listener a grain of salt, just to be like, you know what do these fuckers even know? Do they know what they're talking about? And of course, if you've listened for all 6 years going on 7 now, you know we don't know what we're talking about. But we're going to try anyways. Josh, you have it pulled up. You were doing some fancy typing pre-show. I know I have my scores from my little scoring system last year, but do you have something to compare last year to success?
Well, I had my likes and my dislikes from last year.
Okay.
And so I guess I don't know what standings we are, because I was going to kind of base it off of that.
Ooh, I do have the standings if you need a reference point.
All right, but I mean, going through it, probably just go ahead and not think about anything that I say as a positive light. I think the one thing that I might have nailed on the head was I did not like Brian's pick of Kyle Pitts last year. That panned out. But other than that, it was kind of just a disaster all around. I wasn't that good at grading a draft. So I don't think I actually did a whole lot of grading. I see 2 G's it looks like you did 2 different grades.
No, the
Either
top
that-
one's you. I think you got halfway through it.
At the bottom, the bottom one.
Sorry, yep. You're right. You're true.
Yep. Yeah. So we'll pretend that I finished it, but I didn't.
It's okay, buddy. Based on my little scoring system I made up last year, kind of roughly how I did it is I did scores out of a top number. So running backs and wide receivers I did out of 10, quarterbacks I did out of 9, tight ends I did out of 7, and then bench I did out of 5. So I would give them a score based on that scale. And I won't go through everything, but last year I did have Garrett as my top team, and he finished 3rd, so I wasn't that far off. I had Jamie as my second best team, who did not as good. She did not make the playoffs. But then I graded myself at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th, and I was the champion. And I graded Willie at 9th, and he was the runner-up. So, I am not great, but I did grade Jesse as last, and Jesse came in last. So you know what?
Well,
I'm not completely unredeemable.
That's kind of unexpected.
That's true. And Josh, I graded you at 4th, and you came in 5th, so I was pretty close for you, Ben.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I'm looking at Fantasy Pros. They had me at 4th, you at 1st.
Fantasy Pros had me at 1st?
Yep, and Jeremy at 3rd, and he finished 6th. So not too far off. Derek finished 7th, and they had him at 5th. Jamie at 6th, and she did 9th. Nikita at 9th. Nikita might have been the most improved from Fantasy Pros. She was ranked at 9th, and she finished 4th. Garrett, I guess, was 11th and finished 3rd. So that just kind of probably the in-season management and all of that fun stuff. But it looks like Fantasy Pros was relatively close, I guess.
I mean, they nailed the champion, so no matter what Fantasy Pro says this year, that's the gospel we're following, right?
Works for me.
Does it have you first? I have no idea.
It might.
Oh, no. Okay. Spoiler. All right. With that,
Season's
Josh,
over.
Yeah, let's go ahead and you did get Christian
hang
McCaffrey.
the banner.
Yep. All right, let's go ahead and transition into talking about this year, Josh. We went from, I don't think we've mentioned it yet, but we went from a 14-team league down to a 12-team league. Our good friend Willie, an OG member of the league, he was here with us for 10 Hidden Oaks seasons. He decided to opt out of the league for personal reasons, which I respected. Not that I love to see Willie go, but I understood. And in that same transition, the Hammers were more than generous to combine into one mega Hammer team, which is honestly intimidating in its own right. But now we are down to 12 teams. And so we had a 12-team draft, and though we still had 14-person rosters, 9 starters, and 5 bench. So even with that, I feel like everyone's benches are really gross. I don't know if this is just a bad year for fantasy, but we'll get into it and talk about it here in a second. But overall, Josh, before we start grading, because you're first here, how did you feel draft day went? Did you feel good about your team? Did you feel good about drafting first? Did you have any regrets picking first? Because you got top choice. You picked any draft position you wanted, and you wanted the fucking Heat. You wanted to draft first overall. So leading up into the draft and then on draft day, how did you feel about that?
Well, from the moment I wrote my name down in the 1 slot, I hated it every single moment, including after the draft. Not a big fan of my team. I think that Christian McCaffrey is a wow pick, or not a wow pick. Obviously, it's kind of the expected 1-1.
But he's a wow player.
Yeah, I read something where he could take off. You could take off 15 of his touchdowns last year, and he'd still be the number 1 running back last season by a decent margin. So he's just an anomaly when it comes to fantasy. If he can repeat that, great. But the rest, kind of, I'm a big Rashad. I like Rashad White. If he could repeat what he did last year, that's great. But wide receivers, it's just meh. They're not bad, but they're not dominant forces. My flex, meh. Not bad, just not dominant forces. And then, just like tight end, meh. I usually stream tight end kickers and defenses, though, so it's not like I cared a whole lot about that. But, just kind of a whole overall, just Christian McCaffrey, and then meh throughout the rest. How about you, Gar? How did you feel it went?
Yeah, I was drafting 11th, and I usually opt for the middle of the draft and or like second. I think second has kind of been my sweet spot in this league, and so drafting 11th, which is kind of the anti-second, I was not thrilled about. I really enjoy, even though it's more of a high risk, high reward situation when you have when you put so much faith into like one top tier player. I would much prefer that over having a bunch of mid tier players trying to make up the production of one superstar. So I didn't really have much of a choice. I think my ball was pulled third to last, which when you win the year before, that's kind of the system we built to kind of even things out. But I am not overly thrilled about drafting 11th. And I put together the best team I thought I could. But yeah, I mean, I was resigned to the fact that, well, you're drafting 11th. You're not going to be in love with your team. This is the year you're going to have to deal with because you won last year. So I'm not. I set my expectations low so I couldn't get hurt, but that's kind of where I am.
Yeah.
All right, Josh. You start. You talk to me about your team.
Well, about my team. Well,
your draft
overall,
whatever.
So I guess we did this. I did the little score thing, and I tried to make it as even as possible across all the things, so they were all within 1 point. Because why not be funny like that? And I basically did that exact thing where there's only one. I think Nikita was my top team just based on my quick I did it at work during lunch, and between that and talking to coworkers and that I maybe spent 3.5 minutes on it. But Nikita came out 1, and then we have like a 6-way tie for second. And then I think I had Brian in last, tied with Jeremy. So I think it's more ageist than anything. But those were that. I did what I usually do, which was my favorite, like kind of value pick where they're at, and then the reach, or like the guy who I feel like probably didn't necessarily need to get taken there, or guys who were taken after that looking back, hindsight 2020. I put in kind of parentheses afterwards, like, these are the guys that you probably could have taken instead. And so for myself, I said that I got Pollard at the end of the 6th, at the turn, likely the starting running back in Tennessee, or splitting with Tyjae Spears, who is an electric younger running back too. But Pollard, he's my 4th running back, probably a flex plug or an injury guy. But I feel like getting him at that point was not bad. My reach was Aaron Jones, who I got in the beginning of the 5th. Just because looking at the draft and my team, might have been nice to get someone like Zay Flowers or Tank Dell, who's another wide receiver that has the potential to boom as a second-year guy.
All right, I did the same thing as you. I did a value and a reach just so we could kind of see how we feel differently about things. For me, I gave your value to Coleman. I guess I don't know. Like, of course, he's a rookie, and of course the wide receiver core in Buffalo is decimated. But you know what? Josh Allen loves to hook that thing, and I don't know that I have more faith in Curtis Samuel, or I don't even remember all the other retreads that are now on Buffalo. But someone's got to be top dog. It could be Dalton Kincaid, but I don't think it will be. I'm sure he'll get his, but Keon Coleman has all the upside in the world, and I think that's a really good value pick. I was really hoping to stack him with Josh Allen. It didn't work out that way. I didn't pull the trigger soon enough. I was just hoping to keep skating by, but it is what it is. Anyways, and I thought your reach was Olave. Of course, it's hard to say a reach with the number 1 receiver on the New Orleans Saints, especially at the beginning of the 3rd round, but I am lower on him this year. I think I would have preferred someone like Mike Evans or Drake London over Chris Olave. I think their upside is higher, if you can believe it. But I don't know that you were reaching too far there. I just sometimes I forced myself to pick a player, and some teams I literally couldn't do it, like you'll see in a second. But that's what I thought. In my cheeky little scoring system, I gave you a 28 overall. Your best group was your running backs, of course, and then your worst group kind of was your quarterback. And when you wait, Brock Purdy's going to be fine, but, I just had to give a score, so.
He's not even my quarterback anymore.
Oh, really? Well, there you go. But yeah, that's what I did. Moving on, Josh.
Yeah, no.
Oops, sorry.
I was just going to say, but Olave, as far as the reach goes, yeah, he was one that I definitely hemmed and hawed between him, Mike Evans, and Drake London. I went with Olave because of consistency. He's got the same quarterback as last year, and hopefully the same is healthy. He's not aging like Evans, though Evans is, like Olave and Evans were kind of the two closest. I felt like it was too early to get Drake London. I actually made a joke thinking that he would have fallen all the way down to the fourth if there was like a run on quarterbacks, which there was later on. But Olave finished last year as wide receiver 12, I believe, in our league, and I took him as the 12th wideout. So not necessarily the biggest reach. I was really hoping to get Devontae, though, at the end of the second, which is
You were close.
one of the reasons why. Yep, I know.
I don't think he would have gotten through Derek, but it's possible.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Well, moving on. You want to start with that?
Yeah, I'll start. We'll go back and forth like we do for the teams. Talking about Derek, I think Derek had a pretty solid draft. He's in that sweet spot of second, the draft position I like. But I really couldn't give him a value or a reach. I do like his draft, but I think his ADPs are pretty solid across the board. I don't think anyone was too early. I don't think anyone was too late. I don't know. Just to give insight on his team, he went Bijan in the first round, then James Cook in the second, Nico, DJ Moore, T. Higgins, Christian Kirk, blah, 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 blah. Anthony Richardson is his quarterback in the 9th, and then Brock Bowers, his tight end, in the 11th. I don't know. I didn't, it was only my second team, and of course I was not going to go back and fix my, decisions later. So in my little grading system, I gave him his best position is his running backs, and then his worst position is his tight end, because, who knows with Brock Bowers. But overall, I think Derek had a decent team. In my rankings, he is ranked actually, never mind, I ranked him 11th, so I don't remember why I was saying he had a decent team, but Derek, you could have done better. Josh, what do you think about Derek?
I think he's cute.
Well, he is cute. He's about to be a dad too. Shout out Derek.
Yeah, no, I had his value pick, or kind of like my favorite pick was DJ Moore. So in some of the mocks that I did, I had Amari Cooper and DJ Moore at the 4-5 turn, and when I saw that DJ Moore was still available and so was Amari Cooper, I was sitting there just like, hell yeah, I'm going to actually get that, because that's what I wanted. DJ Moore finished as a top 10 receiver last year in our league, and that was with the inconsistent quarterback play of Tyson Bagent and Justin Fields. So hopefully with a little bit more consistency with Caleb, he's still going to perform solidly. So I do like that pick, and I'm a little upset I didn't get it. My least favorite reach, I guess, if you want to call it that, Christian Kirk, not necessarily a reach when he's the 4th receiver for Derek, and he was, a pretty solid starter until he got hurt last year. But some of the guys that I might have taken over Kirk at that point were Scary Terry, Rashee Rice, Kelvin Ridley, and those guys just finished at the same kind of spot last year as far as points per game at the receiver position. But yeah, otherwise I feel like his is similar to mine, where it's just kind of Bijan, and then DJ, all the way through, where there's not really too many flashy names, unless you want to count J.K. Dobbins as a flash in the pan once he gets hurt week 1.
Sure.
Moving on to the Hambers, I had Evans as the value pick. Like I said, he was one that I'd been strongly considering at the beginning of the third. So a solid pick, the 13th or 15th, 14th wide receiver off the board. Is a perennial 1,000-yard receiver. Not bad. He's got Baker back, that sort of thing. My reach, I had JJ, just because, and I understand, yes, he picked JJ because Jamie really wanted Justin Jefferson on the team because he's just a good old boy. I don't want to mention the fact that he got his woman pregnant and then, threatened to not pay anything because he didn't want to, and none of that. But he's just a good old boy.
We're just talking about fantasy right now.
But well, I didn't think about it at that time.
So you got to get it
out in the universe. Yeah, but I would have taken CD or Tyreek over Justin Jefferson just based on the quarterback consistency and the kind of the familiarity with the quarterback. So I don't know if Justin Jefferson's had any snaps with Sam Darnold in the preseason, but yeah.
All right, Hammers was actually, they were one of my favorite teams. I have them ranked second, I think, in my little scoring system. My value pick for them was David Montgomery. I deeply considered taking him before that. When I'm on the end of the draft, I decided to not do that, or when I'm on the other end of the draft, I decided to not do that. But David Montgomery was a huge part of my success last year in fantasy. I have no reason to believe he's going to have a huge fall off or anything. And even Jahmyr Gibbs is, nursing a hamstring right now, so maybe they're extra cautious with that in Detroit. But but I love David Montgomery. I love him for the Hammers. For me, their reach pick was Zeke, and it's hard to say you're reaching in the 8th round, but I just really did not like the Zeke pick at all. Looking at the running backs taken next, there's J.K. Dobbins, there's Chase Brown, there's Gus Edwards, Trey Benson. I think there's just a lot more upside out there available at running back than with Zeke. I think Zeke has fallen off a cliff, and maybe things could be different this year, rekindled in Dallas, but I don't think so. I just think they could have gone with a much different running back at that pick. But overall, again, they were my second-ranked team. Their best group for me is their wide receivers. Their first 3 picks were wide receivers, so that makes sense. And then their worst group for me was either their bench or their running backs. Josh, we're going to talk about Eric now. Eric also ripped 2 wide receivers off the top, but I think their value pick was Kyle Pitts. They took Kyle Pitts in the 6th round, and we've seen what Kirk Cousins can do with tight ends. Of course, he's going to a new offensive system, but I think Kyle Pitts has a lot of talent, and I think as long as Kyle Pitts can live up to that talent, this kid should feast based on everything I know about Kirk Cousins. So this value pick says much more about the quarterback than it does the tight end. But I think Kyle Pitts could have gone much sooner than the back half of the 6th round. For me, I think Eric's reach pick was Neighbors. I don't know. I think there's just so much unknown with Danny Dashes, and I tried so hard to be a fan. I tried so hard to build him up and to believe in him, but I'm over it now, and I think there's different wide receivers Eric could have taken there instead of Malik Neighbors, such as Zay Flowers, Tank Dell, or even George Pickens. But that's just me. What do you think about Eric's team, Josh?
I liked his Adams pick. Adams was he had a quiet year last year, unless, watch receiver, and he's quite loud about the dysfunction. But late in the 2nd, he was a top 10 wideout last year, I believe, still, even with all of the kind of ups and downs. And so that is, in my opinion, a solid pick. Like I said, I wanted Adams. My reach, or my kind of non-favorite pick, Javonte Williams. I get it. He's the starter in Denver. At least I think so. I honestly couldn't tell you anything other than Bo Nix is the starter and Cortland Sutton's the starter at wide receiver. I don't know anything about that team other than, that basically.
Sean Payton?
And Sean Payton. But I just think, Javonte, I would have rather had like Jalen Warren, Tajay Spears, Raheem Mostert. Those 3 who were taken in that same round probably would have been picks I would have taken over Javonte. But I understand if he is a starting running back, he's talented. It's just he hasn't really shown anything as far as a running back goes that I remember, at least.
Tell me about Brad.
Moving on to Brad. I thought Brad actually did okay this draft. I liked his London pick. So London came off in mid-3rd, has his 2nd receiver. So having that Tyreek Hill, Drake London as a top 2 wideouts, it looks like he got really comfortable with that idea until about round 8 when he took Ladd. So he's banking on them being solid producers, which they should be, especially if London and Kirk are homeboys. They maybe share some Coles cash together. My reach was George Kittle. Not that he's a bad player, but just based on kind of the how many wide receivers had been taken off the board, and then just wanting to get a flex over a tight end. My personal preference, I said Zay, Dell, and then even DeAndre Swift might have been a solid pickup to pair with his Kenneth Walker, Isaiah Pacheco as a flex position. But I did like his draft.
All right, there you go, Brad. You're getting some flowers from Josh. Who ever thought you'd see the day? For Brad, I really liked the Walker pick. I thought, as far as running backs that were going, I thought Kenneth. I would have had. If I were drafting before, I think I would have had Kenneth Walker over, for sure, over Joe Mixon, maybe over Devon Achane, who I took myself. Going back, maybe that's a pick I'll kick myself for. But I think Bradley got a really good value with Kenneth Walker there at the back half of the 4th round. And then for my reach for Brad, I really did not like Jalen Warren. I know you were just talking him up, so I think it's interesting that we were kind of on the opposite sides of this Jalen Warren pick. I think I would have much rather had Nick Chubb or Raheem Mostert over Jalen Warren. But you know what? I would love to be wrong. That's kind of the fun thing about this, is all the different opinions. But I did not like Jalen Warren this year. I'm fading him virtually everywhere. Yeah, I don't know. I just see things differently, and it's just in my gut. It's not based on any data. I could be totally wrong.
That's deflate these balls championship running back Jalen Warren to you, Mister.
Oh well, congratulations.
And championship running back Kenneth Walker III.
See, well, I mean, I said I liked Kenneth, so I mean, we're half on the same page. But yeah, Bradley, I gave him a 32 in my low scoring system, and that was good for
900th.
7th. He was 7th, and I didn't say Eric before, but Eric was 5th. I'm going to move on to talk about Brian, though, Josh. Brian, I liked his draft less than Brad's. I gave him just a 30 in my low scoring system. I didn't particularly like anything over the next. If I had to pick one, I would say his receivers are his best unit. I thought his best value pick, though, was Jalen Waddle. I was surprised to see Jalen Waddle kind of go in the right there, starting the second half. Is that the second half? Starting the second half of the 4th round. I thought for sure he'd go before someone like DK Metcalf, but what do I know? Not much, apparently, even though I am the reigning champion of this league. But I thought Jalen Waddle was a good pick in the 4th round.
DK Metcalf was gone by the time he took Jalen Waddle.
Oh, who am I thinking then? Oh, like Amari Cooper then for what am I? It doesn't matter. I'm drunk. Doesn't matter. I thought Christian Watson was his reach, though. I think Jaden Reed is kind of the top dog. At least it feels like Jaden Reed is the top dog in Green Bay. I know Christian Watson is kind of the flashy name. He's that outside receiver, but I don't know, Josh. Am I wrong here to think that Watson is not necessarily the actual top dog, even if he's built that way on the depth chart?
It always makes me sick to my stomach when people ask me what I think about Green Bay's wide receiver room and who's the wide receiver one. I want to vomit every time.
They're all wide receiver one?
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're not wrong. Christian Watson is that deep threat kind of separation guy. Jaden Reed, just watching him last year, he strikes me as kind of like the Debo light. He's not going to take the ball like a running back. He's not going to line up at running back, I should say, but he does a lot of that cross motion, Tyreek Hill stuff, not without that kind of speed and constant motion. Christian Watson is he's a big body, get up, win the one-on-ones. He's like a Mike Evans with a little bit more speed to him. And so his big thing was the whole hamstring concern, because I think his rookie year he had a bad hamstring injury. Last year he had a bad hamstring injury. So this year there's been a lot of hype that he's been doing TB13, which is the sequel to DB12.
Damn.
And just getting his body right. So if he is, I'm ecstatic as a Packers fan, because he's been, he was electric to watch when he's on the field, when his little 9 touchdown run in 4 games. But yeah, it's really just, I've seen the ADP for Watson, Reed, Dobbs, and Wicks all within 25 on some websites, which is just bonkers to think about. And it's not top 50, but mid rounds, between 7, 8, and 9, all 4 of them are going, it seems.
All right. Overall, what do you think about Brian's team?
No, I'm just kidding.
Damn.
Value pick, Jameson Williams, just because last season he did start to actually show a little bit when he got the ball in his hands. He's got to stay healthy. He's got to stay off the bookies. But I do think that Jameson, as a 5th wide receiver, is a pretty solid 5th, depth guy. Might even get to plug in if Watson does go down, or I guess I did read that Jamar Chase is going to be there this year. So my reach for him was Connor, James Conner, that is. When, looking at the board guy, if you're looking running back at that spot, I would have taken DeAndre Swift or Zamir White, even Brian Robinson. I might have taken over James Conner, just because James Conner had one good year. Last year he was kind of absent. I don't even know. Was he hurt? I don't even remember.
I mean, I think the entire Arizona Cardinals team was absent last year is kind of the problem.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, who knows if he can bounce back? That's great. I love the Nick Chubb pick, although with the news of him being on the PUP and out for the first 4 games at least, not necessarily the best of news, but I do like Nick Chubb. So grabbing a first-round running back in the 7th round is not a bad thing if you can hang on to him that long. Moving on to Jess. I would say that he might be the most consistent drafter, the most consistent fantasy player in our league, as far as finishes go with his roster that he's got. But but that's why we love him. My value, Michael Pittman in the middle of the third. Once again, kind of a top half of the top 15 wide receiver as far as fantasy values go. Drafted right around that 18 range. So it's just kind of that question mark of whether or not Anthony Richardson is going to get laughed off the field every week or not. But yeah, having him paired with Amon Ra and DK, not a bad starting wideout and flex combo. My reach for him was Evan Ingram, just because if you're I don't know, you and I somewhat in the same crowd, I think, when it comes to tight ends and quarterbacks. Don't take both of them within a few rounds of each other, because there's other positions to fill a little of more importance. Unless you're getting like a Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes, those absolute studs that are going to win you games with their stack. But and then him going and getting Dallas Goedert, who, if they're both healthy, Ingram and Goddard might finish about the same. In my opinion, I would have taken somebody like Brian Robinson, Najee, and I even talk bad about Najee all the time, or Tony Pollard over Evan Ingram, just because his second running, it would have been, second running back, and then you could have built depth from there. Sure. What do you think?
No, I mean, just to your first point, quickly, I definitely, I'm not perfect. More than anything else in my fantasy drafts, I try and do diversity. So like I try and make sure my teams are pretty different. So like if one stud player gets injured, it doesn't decimate like all my fantasy teams. So sometimes I will go quarterback and tight end early, but that is the exception, not the rule. I definitely, if I go quarterback early, I try to punt on tight end until late in the draft. If I go tight end early, I try to punt on quarterback until late in the draft. I really think you should only hit one early, and I think that's a little nugget. Of course, I've tried to probably follow it accidentally, but I think the fantasy footballers is where I got that little nugget specifically, at least in the past, 4 years or so. But yeah, as far as his team overall, I thought his reach was Ingram, just kind of like you were saying. We agreed there. I won't repeat all your points. I thought his value player could be Addison. We know it's possible that he doesn't play or this or that, but assuming he does, I think Addison could be sneaky good. I think the Vikings, assuming we're playing from behind a lot, I think that just means more offense. And if everyone's going to be, quadruple covering Justin Jefferson each game, I think that gives Addison a chance to eat, especially while Hawkinson is out early. So it's a boom or bust value, but I plugged in someone and I plugged in Addison. Moving on to T. I really liked his Romeo Doubs pick. We were just talking about the Packers wide receivers a moment ago. To get Romeo Doubs in the back half of the 11th round, I think that's pretty darn good. I'm surprised you let him go by as long as you did, Josh. Maybe it's because you already had 5 receivers by that point, or maybe you just didn't want to be all over the Packers. But I think that's a steal of a pick. I don't know. Again, what do I know? And then I thought his reach was Trey McBride. I think people might be, of course he's a good prospect. I think people might be a little overhyped based on what Sam Laporta was able to produce last year. Generally the rule is rookie tight ends are not that great, and then Sam Laporta really kind of helped break that mold last year. So I think that might be built into, even though he's not a rookie, I think people are just like, who is this Trey McBride guy? I don't see it. I don't see what everyone else is seeing. So I don't know. I think it's just a new name, and people are just like, you know what? Let me draft this guy. What do you think about Jesse's team, Josh? Or T's team, excuse me.
T's. Well, I think the big Trey McBride thing is that he finished the season really strong. The first 5 weeks of last year, he had like 15 total points, and then after that, his lowest score was 6 and 5, but everything else was above 10 in PPR. So, I think that he grew into it, but having Laporta kind of steal the show is one thing. But I liked his Kyron pick in the second round. So I saw a lot of mocks for Kyron's going in the first, or like right at the turn, like in the first pick of the second round. Just because of how electric he's been. He's not necessarily the most durable from his one season. They use him a lot, and so that there is that speculation that he's not going to be the bell cow like he was. But grabbing him there, I thought was good value. I was like you, and I said McBride as my reach for him. I said, as far as players that I would have taken, I said any other any of the remaining wide receivers that were taken in the second round. So DK, Jalen, Stephon, DJ Moore, Amari Cooper taking over Trey McBride, just because that Cooper Kupp, Zay Flowers, Calvin Ridley as a top 3 is kind of a meh. But he did replace, he got Xavier Worthy, who could be a big pick for Kansas City as well. But overall, not a bad team. Got some decent names in there that could provide some boom weeks. Moving on to Gurrit. My value pick was Joey Mix in the first third of the fourth round. Starting running back in Houston, passing offense, obviously. So but he just came from Cincy, which was kind of a passing offense anyways. That's his first running back, so it's not a bad first running back to get at that point in the draft, in my opinion. My reach for him, I said Mahomes, just because Mahomes is the first quarterback off the board is, I think, just more so fandom of the name than anything. I think that Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson are better fantasy options, just because of the weapons around them, or the weapons that Josh Allen runs more than Patrick Mahomes. But I don't know. I just felt like the third was kind of an early take for a quarterback there. But what do I know?
Josh, we both are learning neither of us know nothing, And I think that's what the fans really want us to admit. Moving on, though, I'll talk about Garrett's team. My value, again, someone who really helped me last year, and I have no reason to believe there'll be a dramatic fall-off this year. Maybe it won't be the exact same magic, but Raheem Mostert, I think, is a good value pick. He got him in the second half of the 7th round, and of course, he's another year older. He's another year banged up, blah, blah, blah. I think as far as your flex player, Raheem Mostert is going to be a stud. For my reach pick, I didn't particularly like Rome. Yes. How do you say his last name? Adunze? Sorry, I can't fucking read either.
I'm really happy that you said Raheem Mostert is a really good flex pick, because that's my flex in the Champs League.
Nice. Josh, I've been all over Raheem Mostert for years, so it finally really boomed for me last year. But
that is Deflate These Balls championship running back Raheem Mostert to you, sir.
Anyways, I did not like Rome, however you said to pronounce his last name. I just think with Keenan Allen and DJ Moore there, of course, there is always that chance for the rookie quarterback and the rookie wide receiver to really spark up that chemistry. I just think I'm already questioning the Bears offense the way it is, and so the rookie wide receiver, I think I might have gone a different direction there. With you got Jordan Addison still on the board there, Xavier Worthy, Keon Coleman, DeAndre Hopkins, Mike Williams. There are plenty of players, I think, either with more upside or a much more solid floor. That's just my opinion, though. But overall, I did give Garrett one of the best grades in the draft with my little grading system, so that's what I think about Garrett. Moving on, Josh, we will talk about Nikita, who I actually ended up giving the best score in my little scoring system to. I gave her value pick to Jaden Reed. Again, we've been talking about these Packers receivers. I won't rehash the points. I thought her reach pick was Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara slipped into the third to last pick of our third round, and I think ESPN just updated its rankings to reflect that a lot of people are just fading Alvin Kamara. And why? Simply, it's age. And I know, both you and I have had our different love and hate affairs with Alvin Kamara based on what he's doing for or against us, but he's been a stud in this league for a long time. I think people are just scared of running backs with a high age on their ID, so it just is what it is. I would not have taken Alvin Kamara in that next pick, because I was drafting right after Nikita for that pick, but I just think he's a reach. I think I would have gone in a different direction. But Josh, I think you feel differently. What do you think about Nikita's team, even though I gave her the best grade in my little grading system?
I thought Kamara was a value at that point, because last year he was the number 11 running back, and on a per game basis, he was the third best running back. So getting him at that point in the draft, I think is, not bad for a running back too. Yes, he's up there in age, but you just praised Raheem Mostert, and Raheem Mostert's up there in age. So it's not like,
Yeah, but they're being used so differently. I know what you're saying. Sorry, go ahead.
But and so it's one of those things like, I understand that the age thing, because that's why I hesitate on Raheem Mostert too. But Kamara is 29, so it's not like
was Kamara running back like 4 last year
on a per game basis? 3.
Okay, well, how many games did he miss?
1.
Anyways, Josh.
I'm just kidding. I don't know. He missed 3. 4. But yeah, so then my reach was Burrow, similar to what I had said about Jesse's team, taking the quarterback and the tight end that close together. I might have taken somebody like Ramondre. Ramondre Stevenson. Sorry, I got the colors mixed up.
The colors.
That's not what I meant. I meant the colors of the positions on here. Jeez,
I got it.
Ramondre, Christian Kirk, Rashee Rice. I might have taken those guys over him, or even Terry McLaurin. And then also his injury concern, whether or not he's back or not. They say he is, but still kind of up there. But if he is back to where he was, it's a solid quarterback. I do really like her team a lot as well. Other than that Khalil Herbert pick in the 14th, but who cares?
In the 14th, bro. You're gonna pick her apart for her last play.
Yeah, well, I mean, she is lacking in running backs, and I think she made a mention of that. And so I think I don't know if she panic picked Gus Edwards, but she picked Gus Edwards, and I was thinking back on it today when I was looking at this, I was like, did she got a starting running back in a Harbaugh offense in round 9? So that's fun. And I say starting, assuming
definitely
that
has a chance to be a really good player.
Yeah. So that's I really liked her draft there. And then Cortland Sutton as well in the 8th. Tank Dell in the 5th. Moving on to the reigning champ.
Defending, undisputed.
I really liked your Jerome Ford in the 10th. I was thinking about taking him when I had the Keon Coleman pick, but I decided to go with Keon because I knew my wide receivers were a little bit lackluster as far as flash, bang, pow. But Jerome Ford, especially with Chubb missing the first 4 games minimum, my reach for you was Godwin, and I really don't know why.
You were laughing at me about that pick at the draft, dude. You literally exclaimed out loud, "What an idiot!" or something like that.
Well, I think I did that because I don't remember why exactly. I might have been looking at a different name on my thing, and then you said Godwin, and then laughed because that's who I would have taken over it. And I probably would have taken Terry or Rashee over him, assuming Rashee plays. But that's just me. I mean, Godwin last year, he finished right around the same range as Terry McLaurin, DeAndre Hopkins, Rashee Rice, as a points per game basis. So, but he's different style than Terry and DeAndre at least, and so who knows if Baker can bake? Let's go.
If Baker can bake, I like it. Josh, speaking of my team, I'm the greatest there is. I wake up every morning and I piss excellence. No, for a value, I genuinely, I wasn't even trying to be humble gar. I talked at the beginning of the show about drafting 11th. I don't feel like there's necessarily that super stud power. So I gave myself a meh for my value. I don't know that I took anyone that far away from their APD or their ADP, to be like, wow, this is really good value. I think I took a lot of high upside players instead, which, at the end of the year, I could be like, wow, this guy was a steal. But as of right now, there's just a bunch of question marks on a lot of my players. So as far as my reach pick, I look back and I think, you know what? Again, I talk about diversity. George Pickens is not someone I take a lot. If I could have, I'm a classic Keenan Allen guy. Going back in time, would I have loaded up on Keenan Allen for yet another year? Maybe. Will I regret it in a full PPR league? Maybe. But I decided to go George Pickens, and I'll go ahead and call that a reach just for the bit. Maybe I would have preferred even a Jaden Reed, who didn't go until much later in the draft. But I gave myself the reach of Pickens, and then as far as my scoring system goes, I gave myself the grade of 600. I gave myself a grade of 6th in my little scoring system. So not the best, not the worst, kind of right in the middle. Moving on to the 12th team, the final team. We're here at the end, folks. We're talking about Jer Bear. He was the one who was on a pontoon in the middle of a lake. It happens. But he drafted Kelsey overall, and that was my reach for him. Just because, of course, hindsight's 2020. But Kelsey is not going in the first round anymore. Not this year. I mean, I understand wanting to secure your guy. I'm definitely, when I draft at the edges of drafts, I always say reach and get your guy. He could have waited until the next go around to get Travis Kelsey, though. He's just not going as early as he used to. People are factoring in that age heavy, even if they shouldn't, or the production of other tight ends being relative to Kelsey's. Either way, that was my reach for him. And then my value pick I thought was Zach Moss, the starting running back in Cincinnati. He got him at the beginning of the 10th round. Of course, it might be more of a committee with Chase Brown and whoever the hell else is in Cincinnati these days. Who knows? But I thought that's a good value pick for Jeremy. He could definitely, I could see Zach Moss ending up in his lineup more than DeAndre Swift, just depending on how the year shakes out. But maybe that's just me being more of a skeptic of Swift than anything else. Josh, what did you think about the Jer Bear in the 12th spot?
Well, you've always been a skeptic of Swift, it seems, and yeah, he's had his reasons. Back when he was in Detroit, and he was always hurt. Last year he was running back 20. I believe he missed a little bit of time. No, he did not. But he did start the season strong, and then kind of fizzled out near the middle to the end. DeAndre Swift, it was my value just because, end of the 5th, he's likely the starter there. He might have a little bit better opportunity to get some rest with Roschon Johnson backing him up. So that is not necessarily a bad thing if he's able to rest up and save some of his legs for later. As far as a reach, I had Jalen Hurts, just because same thing I've said earlier, tight end and then quarterback in a couple of rounds kind of really hinders his positionals, other positions later on. I would have taken Devon Achane, Metcalf, Waddle, Kenneth Walker. A lot of those guys that were taken after Jalen Hurts before him, just in a different position there. Overall, like I said, I think Jeremy and Brian were my lowest scores. That Kelsey in the first is kind of a thing. Maybe it was his reception, and he's like, I pulled up the draft, but I can't see, and it just, he's drunk, so he's slurred. And he's like, I Kelsey. And so you just gave him Travis Kelsey. You didn't want to tell us that he was actually trying to figure out what else had been taken.
I tanked Jeremy for sure. I ruined his draft. Yep, I did announce it. I'm interrupting your point, but I think I did announce it to the group at one point. His texts were progressively getting worse during the draft. At one point, when he was at the whatever round it was,
Deontay Johnson.
Yeah, it was Austin Eckler and Deontay Johnson as the players I gave to him. But the text message read Austin exile and donate. That's what the text message said. So I was like, well, I feel pretty confident I know what this guy's saying, but Austin exile and donate also sound like banger players. So I wish they were on my fantasy team this year.
Good. Well, yeah. So that's our draft. Going through your list again, I'll read it for you. You had Nikita at 1, Hammers at 2, Garrett at 3, Jeremy at 4, Eric at 5, Garlic at 6, Brad at 7, T at 8, Jesse at 9, Brian at 10, Derek at 11, Josh at last, dick. I also noticed that the first two, you must have been very strict when you started grading, and then just loosened up as you went.
That's how it goes sometimes, isn't it? It's easier, whoever presents first. You and I did a lot of school over the years, right? Whoever presents first either gets the most lenient grade or the most strict grade, so it's kind of a risk, but yeah, like I said earlier, I did not go back and regrade.
The so-called expertise. I found there's a website, Fantasy Football Ranker, where we just entered our league number into it, and it spat out overall ranks and then kind of the positional ranks. I won't go through everything, but we had they agreed with you. They had Nikita in first, and then they had Eric, and then they had me, and then they had Garrett, Jeremy, Hammers, Tua. Oh, I forgot to change that name. Shoot. That might be...
That's got to be T?
That might be Brad.
Oh, yeah, that is Brad.
Yeah. So Brad, Jesse, T, Gar, Derek, Brian. So Nikita and Derek were in the same positions as you. Brass. Fantasy Pros, who we had agreed is gospel and should just end the season
They
as
nailed
is.
it last year. I hate to admit it, but I did win last year.
But they had me at number 1, Eric, T, Gar, Derek, Brian, Nikita, Garrett, Jesse, Jeremy, Hammers, Brad. So I just want to point out that our expert opinions, because we do have a podcast, so we are therefore experts, the expert opinions of a website and the expert opinions of Fantasy Pros all have us basically all over the place.
Exactly. I would have to go back and add up all the time, but they say after you, what is it 10,000 hours, it's some number like that. I think it's 10,000 hours. After you've done something for 10,000 hours, you become a master of it or a professional of it or whatever the right title is. But I'd be curious to see if we definitely don't have 10,000 hours of podcasting, but based on all the time playing fantasy and this and that, I wonder what our total hours would be spent on doing this stupid shit. It would be interesting to have that calculation.
I will say that a lot of these places, I think they value the running back position so highly because the one that's Fantasy Football Ranker that had me 3rd, listen to my positions. QB, 12 out of 12. Running backs, 1st. Wide receivers, 11th. Tight ends, 9th. Flex, 9th. Defense, 8th. Kickers, 11th.
They're like, dude, Christian McCaffrey's gonna hard carry you, dude. Nothing else matters. Get in his backpack and go.
That is exactly what that means, and I'm here for it. Whereas somebody like Jesse, who they have as the 5th best quarterback, 10th running back, 5th wideout, 8th tight end, 4th flex, 4th defense, 1st kicker, 8th.
Yeah. I mean, it
just crazy.
To be fair, Christian McCaffrey does have the what's the right word? The capability of putting up 60 points in a week, which is absolutely insane. Almost no one else can say that. So, I get it.
Real quick, I know we've been doing this for a long time, and I do want to get done, but I want to ask you how your experience with the Champs Draft was. Was there a reason you decided to make the IDP rankings mess up everything so it was just a complete cluster, and then to say, you know what, instead of adding 10 more seconds to each pick, I'm going to make it 30 seconds.
No, I think I wasn't even expecting that myself. I think if I could go back in time, I would make it like either at least 45 seconds a pick, if not a minute. I think the 30 seconds was a holdover from the prior year where we had an auction draft, and that you want the draft timer to be as low as possible because the people are just going to sit there and bid back and forth, so it becomes like a minute or two anyways, depending on how many bids are going back and forth. So that was genuinely not intentional, but after the draft started, I was like, well, you know what? We've already started with this, and people so far have kept up with it, and it's a champs league, so I just let it ride. But that was, I mean, I know I say the line all the time, I needed a cigarette, but that's exactly how I felt. And when you texted the group, I was like, Josh is right. We just did a 19-round draft in under an hour with IDP and 2 tight ends and all these other stupid considerations for all. And we have to get a rookie and all these other stupid rules. That was intense. That was not intentionally trying to torture anyone, but that was insane.
Yeah, I look at my team and it's very similar to what I had in the Hidden Oaks, and like, I mean, not necessarily player wise, but just where it's just like meh all the way through. My first round pick, I panic picked my first round pick because I didn't know. Like, I didn't know what to do because of the ranking orders and the timer, and it started beeping at me through Nikita's computer. And I'm just like, is that off, or is that like delayed compared to what this timer is? Because 2 picks before, Derek auto drafted Josh Allen on my screen, and then I'm sitting there. And then I had Breece Hall highlighted because I figured you were taking Bijan. And then Bijan disappears, and then Breece Hall gets drafted. And I'm sitting there, I'm just like, what the hell just happened? And so I'm like, who do I take?
I know.
So I take Jonathan Taylor, and I'm just like, I don't even want Jonathan Taylor.
I mean, yeah, of course, I would love to say I'm a good commissioner. I was on the ball for everything. But when I saw the 30-second thing, and I think I was draft picked, I don't know, 4 or 5, or when I was earlier in the draft, I think, or was I 7? I don't know. It doesn't matter where I was. But as soon as I saw the 30-second thing, I started to panic myself, and all my commissioner considerations went out the window. And I was like, I got to be ready for my fucking pick, dude. So, yeah, it was I don't want to say I regret it because, again, I think everyone got through it just fine, but that's just another added element of like the champs thing. We try and make it a different league. It's only $40. It's not like it's an expensive league by any means, but it's just like, well, let's just throw all the chaos at you that we can and just see how you perform. So I don't regret it, but in the moment, I probably could have just paused and been like, all right, at least 45 seconds a pick. Let's not go crazy here.
Yeah, I'm looking at like the projections, and granted, they don't necessarily mean a whole lot because last year I was projected to lose most of the games I was in, and I ended up being champion. No big deal. But I'm like projected. I'm projected like 20 less than some teams. It's just like my team blows because I couldn't think. I panic picked. Ended up getting Chris Olave in this league, and I don't even like Chris Olave.
You have Chris Olave in both leagues?
Yes.
Shit.
I think one of my big things is that I have Ben Sinnott as my tight end.
I hated that. I wanted to draft him, you son of a bitch.
Yeah, well, then I picked up Jaden Daniels as my quarterback. I'm just like, the only way I'm going to win games is if these two have just the absolute shake and bake connection, because the rest of my team is just mid.
You hoping Zach Ertz slips on a banana peel or what?
I mean, he did in Arizona.
That's true. All right, Josh, I almost guarantee you don't want to be here for over an hour, and we have been recording for 55 minutes now. So is there anything else you want to say about the draft or the upcoming, kind of how we normally do the fantasy season is we do one more podcast of just like just what our fantasy booms or busts are for the year, our studs and our duds, I guess, if you will, and then any other fantasy things you want to get out there before football season actually starts. So that should be coming out next week. We finally seem to be on schedule. Josh and I are starting to keep each other a little bit honest. Not that we're pushing as hard as we used to about being strict, but anything else you want to say to the folks before we get out of here, buddy?
R.I.P. in peace, A.J. Dillon.
What happened?
He got put on season-ending IR.
Oh no! So Marshawn Lloyd is a hefty pickup today, huh?
Well, Marshawn Lloyd was almost on IR as well.
Jesus, who's
he's
your
dealing
fifth
with
string?
a hammy? Emmanuel Wilson.
Oh, that is a person that exists for sure.
Household name.
All right, Josh, go ahead and say "Go Packers," and then I'm not going to play the outro song. We're just going to end recording.
Go Packers.